All right,
Here we are.
hello.
Hey.
Welcome to ID 24. 24 hours of virtual webinars and barking dogs brought to you by the Paciello Group. I'm going to mute so Bill can take over.
Should have introduced yourself, Carl.
Everyone knows who Carl Groves is.
Carl Groves. I'm the legendary or notorious
There we
Carl
go.
Groves.
Yes, yes.
We have Billy Gregory, and together with a Viking and Lumberjack. We have Molly.
Hi.
And we have Kilroy. Remember those old... Doesn't Mike look like the Kilroy character?
Mike definitely looks like Kilroy.
Do I really?
Mike
All right.
Paciello.
Well, that helps to go with my old nickname, Poochie.
Poochie. You want to...
I don't want to know.
You don't wanna go
I'm
there.
staying away from this conversation.
So a little bit about ID24, because this is the first session of 24 hours of ID24. It's part of the Global Accessibility Awareness Day celebration, and our first presenter is Molly. Molly, you're gonna correct me when I mispronounce your name. Holzschlag.
Just call me Molly.
Molly. Just Molly.
Just Molly.
So some housekeeping really quickly. We're doing these on Google Hangouts. There's a URL for each individual one. To get the full schedule, you go to inclusivedesign24.org. There's a timer there that's localized to your own individual time zone. So when you get there, it'll tell you the times that are relevant to you. There will be URLs for each individual one. And Bill, where do they go if they have to ask questions?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Carl. For the folks at home, if you have questions, we are going to monitor Twitter for them. So feel free to follow to tweet any questions you have for Molly or us or any of the presenters throughout the next 24 hours. Tweet them using the hashtag ID24.
All right. Excellent.
We'll be watching them closely for the next 24 hours and 24 hours and 5 minutes. We'll give you an extra 5 minutes at the end. We're
Now,
watching that.
Typically, these are they're gonna go about actually 50 minutes, right? With a little 10-minute layover for people to get to the next URL. Is that right?
That is correct.
Awesome. See, I pay attention.
There's always proof for everything, Carl.
All right, so it's taken 3 of Molly's minutes, so you're gonna have to, cut it off a little early, Molly. Just,
Yeah, I got this part down.
Okay.
There we go. Well, how about this? How about Molly shares her screen and we shut up and let her do her thing, because they did not come here to hear us talk, Carl.
Cool. I'm muting. All you.
Hey, do you see my slides? Can I get some feedback from...
We do not see your slides yet, Molly.
You do not see my slides. We had this problem before. I know what it is. Let's go back and screen share. I'm going to turn it off and there it is, entire screen. And in just a moment, you should be able to see.
There we are. Hell, there's me.
My screen. There you go. How's that? You see the mask?
You're perfect.
Oh.
That's awesome, Molly. We see you.
Okay, well, super duper, everybody. Well, I want to say, first of all, wow, this is great. I am just so delighted to be here and to be part of such an amazing event on an amazing day and week. As I see, it went from one day, the Global Accessibility Awareness Day, which will be tomorrow my time, but in universal time, it's just starting now. So at the top of the morning, from a time in the past, I am bringing you a presentation today called Behind the Mask, in which we'll explore together the experience of what it means to have, live with, and address the issues surrounding hidden disabilities. So for those of you who aren't familiar with me, I've been hanging around the web for kind of a really long time. So, I mean, somewhere around 93, when it all started. And I've been sticking my nose in this and that for the entirety of its life, from very many perspectives, both as an author. I've worked in various hats in working groups at the W3C. I've worked at the wonderful Nobility. I've been a trainer and educator in web platform, including accessibility and accessible technologies. But more than anything, my thing is about keeping it open, keeping it real between human beings, and really looking for humanistic, clear solutions to the issues that we all face in one way or another. And so that's a lot of what the message that I like to bring to the global forum, if you will, along with my many wonderful colleagues who will describe also social aspects as well as technology in a deep dive, or I know there's just an incredible diversity. We have 24 solid hours here of back-to-back talks that are just world class. So to be kicking it off is a great honor, and it's been a while for me. I'm just getting back into the swing of things after my own serious illness and long-term disability. And so I'm very delighted to be the person to be talking to you about this today. So I thank you for taking the time. So one of the things that really bugs me is this whole concept of normal. I mean, what does it really mean to be normal? So on my slide deck right now, I have just on the left, I have the word normal and a question. What does it really mean to be normal? And an image that says, sometimes I pretend to be normal, but it gets boring, so I go back to being me, which maybe many of you can relate with. I suspect the vast majority of you as creative and technical people will relate to that. So let's take a look at actually the way normal is described in English. It is an adjective, and I find this first part very intriguing. Conforming to a standard. Well, we know a lot about standards on the web platform, don't we? And we also know that standards are fraught with difficulties because one size never really fits all. So when we think about this conformance to a given ideology, how does that really play out in the day-to-day world of our real human lives? I don't know that it can. So let's look at this and then compare some of the things, at least, that I've seen around me. And for those who are visually impaired, I will be describing all of my slides and making sure that there is an accessible transcript available to you as well. So basically, we're looking here at this idea of a standard human being. That's what is the typical and expected human being, right? Well, when we dig a little deeper and we begin to look at the scientific realities of that, we find something very interesting. We find that we are, in fact, very genetically diverse, and that this genetic diversity is by design. It exists for several reasons. One reason it exists is for identification. So family can identify family. Often you'll see in newborn babies, they look very much, especially around the eyes, like their fathers. This is part of that process, identification and ultimately survival of our species. This diversity is important, and it exists in our genetic makeup. It is also subject to change via genetic mutation and heredity, adaptation as we live many years now through various geographical climate changes, as we move around the planet and become a much more globalized society, and the various circumstances that we're up against, and even the environmental problems that we've caused our planet. All of these things play in to what we are turning into tomorrow. We are not necessarily going to stay the same. But the biggest irony that I find when looking at some of the scientific rationale as to what makes normal is that we are the mammals with the least bit of genetic diversity. So, for example, when compared to cats, who are also mammals, there are many greater diverse genetics within the feline realm than in the human realm. Our genetics tend to imply more group across geographical locations. So bottom line is, despite this incredible diversity that is by design and part of our makeup, we are also very much the same, no matter the external expression. So what makes normal? If we are both very different and very much the same simultaneously from a scientific standpoint, what can we honestly turn to define this thing, this elusive idea of normal? So the thing that people define is a set of agreed upon standards as a baseline. Of course, this standard is always going to be based on humans and what they decide and predetermine and judge. And this is imposition involving ethics and morals, belief systems, religions. It is not scientific and empiric fact. It gets modified by human infrastructure and human ways of doing things. As such, I personally am of the mindset that there is truly no such thing as normal, okay? Which would also imply that there is no such thing as abnormal. We simply are as we are. Let's take a look and see. I have a few visual pieces here, personal bits of humor and insight I'll describe. The first slide here, I have the question normal, the word normal with a question mark. The largest picture of three is U.S. Republican lead, Donald Trump, looking extremely, I don't know how else to say it, he's just an ugly man. And he looks very infuriated, ugly and infuriated. And over to his right is Hillary Clinton, and she looks angry and infuriated. And underneath her is Bernie Sanders, and he looks angry and infuriated. Is this normal? These are what? Supposed to be the people who are going to define leadership in the United States of America? And that's normal. Okay, I don't know about you, but my standards say not normal. Here we have a couple of unusual people. We're looking at Korean Jun here. So he's clapping at something, and I imagine that it's probably himself. And he's sporting his ever-famous flat head. Over to the right, we have David Cameron looking very white and very, oh, poor me. I see in that picture the real arrogance of how would we say, affluenza, that representation of the man who has everything but, aw, poor me, right? And at the bottom right, we are looking at the leader of ISIL or ISIS, depending upon how you identify it. And I will just leave that to the world to make your own determination about whether that is normal or not. Now we switch to some images. On the right-hand side are some native pictures of women in Ethiopia that have done extensive body modifications to their physiques. This is, of course, within their standard, considered absolutely normal, okay? We see on the bottom, the woman represented on the bottom has the entire, she has the ear hoops, the lip hoops, she has multiple, what do you call it, not just the piercings, but when they do the, like the bullet kind of thing where it's just stuck in there. And she also has scarification and other body modifications. So on the left-hand side, we see a big picture of what is an English guy that I met in Camden Market in the UK. And he claims to have he claims to be the second most pierced man in the entire world. For those of you who can see this picture, he's also uses paints to express himself, and he sits in a wheelchair under an umbrella, and he's a very heavy-set guy, and he talks to everybody. He's very friendly, and talks about his various. He'll let you look at his various piercings and whatnot. Is this normal? If you're walking in Camden Marketplace, maybe it is, but if I'm walking in downtown conventional Boston, I don't think that this would be considered normal. So remember, context, place, the way people really see and look at you is everything to do with how we interpret normal. So it's an imposition. It is not an empiric measure. Here's yet another example of some questionably normal things or abnormal. I have a picture here of a white guy, a white dude from the U.S. who's proudly sporting a hat with the word trash on it. Hey, and then he has this very strange thing. He has the incredible long fingernails, like claws, beyond belief, that he's got all done up in pretty laminate. And these are his natural fingernails. Over to the right, we have a transvestite who is also sporting very long, exceedingly long fingernails, dressed in a very becoming outfit with long flowing hair. Normal? I don't know. What do you think? And on the right hand, we have a French, beautiful woman, it looks like to me, and proclaiming on her hand XY, representing the male chromosome. And her hand either looks like it was distorted somehow in an accident or birth defect, or it's a really bad Photoshop job. Whatever. It's all fascinating to me. This is humanity, people. We are weird. So much for normal, huh? Okay. Let's talk a little bit now about hidden and what it really means to be a person with a condition. I really hate that word disability, as many of you know and many of you agree. Conditions. We are all subject to conditions, and I think that's just a neutral term. So I prefer that, but obviously we are communicating here and have to use agreed upon terms. So in exploring these hidden disabilities, first of all, let's define it. What is a hidden disability? A hidden disability, generally speaking, is one where the physical or mental conditions or impairments are not readily noticeable to others. In other words, you're not necessarily going to find a person with a hidden disability using an assistive device, such as to walk with, or a wheelchair, or screen readers, or there's even some question about deafness being hidden. That's probably a deeper argument and discussion for a specific topic. But overall speaking, most will not be immediately apparent to other people. And this is, of course, what the hidden part refers to. So what are some examples of hidden disabilities? Well, there are some major categories that hidden disabilities fall into. The behavioral and mental, quote-unquote, health conditions. These conditions, of course, sometimes will be noticeable by the person's behavior. But even then, you might not be able to tell whether that person is really just having a rotten day and acts that way under stress, or is having a real serious problem. We're very diverse, even emotionally. So I think that that's, again, something to bear in mind, that there are a lot of people out there with incredible neurologically different ways of approaching things. And this leads us into, of course, the spectrum-related conditions. Now we're describing Asperger's and autism as being spectrum-related, and I don't like to think of these even as disorders, And while I'm not all that fond of this whole neurodiversity statement, I think it's important because it does bring coalescence around an issue. I think it belittles the impact and the importance of looking at these particular groups, because I think spectrums may be not disorders. I think they may be human adaptations. So it's just something to think about. Another area would be traumatic brain injury, repetitive motion syndrome problems, arthritis, injuries and illness of the brain and central nervous system, bones, muscles, and connective tissues, and chronic illnesses like multiple sclerosis, myalgic encephalomyelitis, lupus, CFS, which is ME, of course, hepatitis viruses, and of course HIV, and other chronic and terminal conditions such as cancer and blood diseases and so forth. So how many people actually have hidden disabilities? By quote-unquote normal counting measures, it is estimated that 96%, listen to that, 96% of humans around the world have a hidden condition. Now, the determining factor in whether that human is quote-unquote disabled has to do with the relationship to how limiting that condition is upon his or her or their lives. Okay, so my way of thinking about this is that, again, there's a huge amount of diversity in that layer when we look at what people can or cannot do based on limitations, okay? So this is how this is determined. And when we go through that process and we make that determination, it comes out that about 25% of that 96% population has an activity limitation of some kind, suggesting there may be up to 23% of all human beings on the planet affected by some form of hidden disability. That is huge information. Now, why does this exist? It's the TAB phenomenon, and some of you will be very familiar with this acronym, and others will not. So why such a high percentage? Why is it so high? Why are hidden disabilities or these hidden conditions so meaningful now? It's because at some time in our lives we're all going to face, whether temporarily, or for long periods of time, or for the entirety of our lives, some aspect of limitation. That's called being alive, people. That's the reality of the human condition. So things come to us. Maybe you break a finger and you can't type, and that's, you know, most programmers, developers, designers, if you can't type, you're impaired, and you need some assistive technology. All right, so then you begin to use that assistive technology, and you may need it for 1 month. You may need it for the rest of your life. It's changing the way you interact with the world around you. Is it a limitation? Others may define it as such. I'm not so sure it always has to be. So it can also come at the other extreme, such as a terminal illness, as cancer, which is not necessarily wasting that person away. You can see some very healthy people healthy-looking people walking around that are very sick. We are able. I just want us not to worry about disability and normalcy. I want us to really focus on what we're able to do, okay? So, dis and the dis, and this goes into, you know, a nice segue about some commentary I have on the disability and what that negativity, that I really dislike the disability. So it doesn't mean that we're unable, it doesn't mean that we're incapable, and it certainly does not mean that we are disempowered. So here's one profile, for example, of a hidden disability, and one that is gaining tremendous amount of awareness is autism. And probably some of you out there may even have autism or are close to people that do. There are many folks around the world combining various efforts, experiences. They're sharing their stories, they're sharing their methods, they're sharing all kinds of information about how people with autism and the diversity within autism how many of those issues can be better addressed to provide autistics, who are often quite capable intellectually, and in fact often more than capable intellectually, to be participant in the world. I'm very personally inspired by a young man named Jamie. Some of you might be following him, Spaced Out and Smiling on Twitter, and he runs the website called spacedoutsmiles.com, and you can look at him there for a first-hand look into the life. Excuse me, it's spacedoutandsmiling.com, and you can look there for a great deal of very articulate and detailed insight, methods, and empowering thoughts about becoming independent with autism. And it's just super inspirational. And I have to say, I'm not classified as autistic, yet many of the methodologies that I have read on his blog and have had in conversations, learned in conversations with him, have been extraordinarily useful in my own condition. So there you go. Shared information, it makes us more powerful together. Another profile of a hidden disability would be something like myalgic encephalomyelitis, or CFS. And one of the problems is that with this is that it really came to bear in the 80s, and a great deal of confusion surrounds it to this day. As more and more viral diseases are becoming discovered, they're starting to find out HCV, which is the hepatitis C virus. There are many subsets of that. They have many subsets of the hep viruses are now going out. I think they go up to gamma at this point. There are other oncoviruses, CMV. This is the rise of the virus. These years are getting kind of scary in that regard. And CFS-ME is often related to something that is viral and is not yet known. And one of the things that come up in this particular situation is the lack of medical belief in the condition. So therefore, there is a complete lack of support right on down the line. If your own medical team cannot provide you with that support, how can you then facilitate anything? You are being compromised by that person or those people who are supposed to be there to help you. So there are also extremely debilitating symptoms that go far beyond the concept of chronic fatigue. Most of us feel fatigue, and most of us are chronically fatigued because we work hard, or we like to drink late, or whatever. We go dancing, I don't know. Whatever your thing is, the bottom line is this is a serious illness, and part of its hidden challenge is for people to be understood even at that granular level right out of the doctor's office. They don't even qualify half the time for disability in the United States, and they have to fight very hard to get accommodations. This is the ME Association in the UK. If you want more information on that particular hidden disability, or hidden condition, as I prefer to say, and it's very, I think, useful for those who are interested in looking at yet another resource where people are truly sharing information and working to create awareness as well as solutions for humanity. And then finally, I'm going to touch a little bit on me. I have been very ill for many, many years. I got sick quite young, and many people don't necessarily know that my history in terms of coming into the web actually came through working as a systems operator on Genie in the Disabilities Roundtable prior to the World Wide Web. So for those of you who remember the Genie's Disability Roundtable, GE, that was GE's all-you-can-eat BBS system back in the day, only text, and I used to be involved in their roundtables, and I was co-moderating that whole section, and it was a wonderful and interesting time for me. And of course, 35 years later into my process, they finally figured out what was wrong with me. And that was a really tough thing to go through, too. But basically, you see a lot of people walking this earth that you would never know are sick, but that are ticking time bombs, whether it's because they have anemic problems or they have other problems related to blood and bone marrow. And other than very minimal external symptoms, these people can in fact be at very high risk. This is what people tell me all the time. But you have so much energy, said thousands of people to me. Do I ask, or is it just a mask? Now I'm going to briefly touch on, as we wrap up, can somebody give me an idea of the time, as I'm not willing to move this desktop, since I understand it is in fact streaming? Feedback from the audience, please.
Molly, you got about another 10 or 15 minutes. It's 8:31 on the East Coast.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's continue with this other section and then wrap it up for the evening, or for the evening. My evening, your morning, or whatever time of day it is where you are. The other section, this is a very interesting thing that a lot of people don't know about. Many people have heard around the world about. In the U.S., we have something called Section 508 of the Rehab Act, which has been part of the legal push, even more than the Americans with Disabilities Act in some cases, to bring about assistive technology and appropriate accessibility in the World Wide Web. It's very interesting when we take a look at the laws, both I'm going to, obviously I have the U.S. perspective as I am a U.S. citizen, and that's my particular environment and most known to me, but I do have some global stats as well that I want to share with you. Civil rights for people who have been deemed to have conditions, whether they are hidden or otherwise, under the law in the United States, states that no otherwise qualified individual shall be excluded from the participation in, be denied benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination based on their disability. This is an inherent belief within the canon of the United States. Whether we actually live it, that's for judges to decide. On the global landscape, we have some very interesting evolving perspectives from the United Nations, from other group and health organizations around the world, as well as different philanthropic organizations interested in looking and studying these particular concerns as we move forward. And one of the most important things there is that disability is an evolving concept. It's not the same thing as it was yesterday. And the diversity of conditions and the understanding thereof, it is growing and expanding and changing all the time. So this is not, it cannot be a one-size-fits-all, as we've learned, and it cannot be a one-time-fits-all. We have to adapt with time, okay? Disability results, listen to this, this is just a piece of such brilliance. It results from the interaction between persons with impairments and attitudinal and environmental barriers. What this is saying in plainer English is that it's not just the physical barriers in the environment. It's human attitude toward your being, whether they can see it or they can't. That is a definitive definition now in the global world, which is fascinating to me and something I think we need to speak more about. Attitudes. These barriers, whether they're attitudinal or environmental, they do hinder those of us with conditions of this nature full and effective participation on an equal basis with others. I don't know about you, but I want them. So there's something, this Section 504, which is the other section of the Rehab Act, addresses U.S. education. And something interesting, along with some other takeaways I want to mention from this section, 504, not 508, is an intriguing thing. It's about perceived disabilities. Listen to this. This is kind of extending on the prior thought. If a person who is known to have an illness that has a negative or other social connotation surrounding it, like HIV, and is being judged unfairly based on that issue, is protected in the U.S. under this particular act. I believe that this applies around the world because many hidden illnesses are misperceived and not necessarily limiting. However, that misperception causes enormous challenges to the person who wants the full support that he or she is entitled to. Okay? So I think that we have to begin expanding our understanding of what these conditions are. So toward a global human equality, how do we get there? I suggest that we look currently into existing models around the world. Look at this Section 504. There's some very fascinating things that it promises students. It puts the onus actually on to the education infrastructure in the public education, and it puts the onus also on to the community. And so everybody becomes aware, and I love that because it means that these things will be much better integrated into the society to come with hope. We, of course, want to combine that knowledge with what United Nations, other global organizations are doing and have published, create a series of human first, ability after. This is kind of my new thing. Don't think about the ability or disability. What's the human in front of you? Okay, what's the desired goal? Now, how do you achieve it? Okay, so look at these as models for education, for work, for play, and relate these directly to the immediate needs of the individual in the tiniest of villages to the largest of groups in the largest of cities and everything in between. And once we've done that, we've got to do it again, and then again, and then again, and again, because if we don't, it becomes obsolete because we are ever changing. Normality is to be different. Every person is a different person. And one day, you need to be aware of your difference, aware that you are not the same as others, and that is to be normal. Alejandro Jodorowsky. Okay, my dears, I think that's the top of the hour, or close to it. I'm going to shift my phase over and hopefully get back to seeing you and being able to join you for Q&A. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, everybody. Wow, it got dark while I was back there.
Billy's fumbling with his controls there, I think.
Uh-oh. So, I would like to know if there are any thoughts, comments, questions that I could be of help with today. Any feedback?
Hashtags. Let's check the hashtags here. Let's see.
Why are they falling asleep? It's just starting, you guys.
Let's see. Man, it's really... No, Billy's yelling. You can't unmute. Let me unmute you, Billy. First, you have to present to everyone. Oh my goodness.
What?
Well, we didn't need to hear from Bill anyway.
Did we lose him?
He's there. I think he's weird. He's hiding.
He's hiding from us.
I thought that was a pretty compelling discussion. I really liked it quite a bit, and I think this is the kind of message that a lot of people, especially people outside of accessibility, need to hear.
Yeah, I agree with you, Carl. I thought it was a great presentation. I'm just going to pretend I'm the voice. Billy, move your lips, and I'll pretend I'm your voice.
No, I think I'm back now. You can't hold me down forever.
Okay, wait. Who's responding and what? I'm sorry, I'm kind of missed it and all the kerfuffle.
Molly, the weird voice is me, Mike.
Oh, it's you. Okay. Hi, Mike. Well, so to your points, you were saying that you felt it was a good discussion, and you felt it was the type of discussion that you feel really needs to be taking place. Could you elaborate on that for me?
Good awareness builder. I think that you brought up topics, terms, and conditions, to be honest with you, that I think that, as you described them in the beginning as kind of in the notion of a hidden disability, that a lot more awareness in our field as professionals with disabilities need to think about. Never mind the fact that most of us are technologists. Those that are listening in are in the same area, so in one shape or another. User experience is a big thing for all of us, and I think a lot of what you talked about spoke to the personas of their user experience.
Well, thank you. Actually, Mike, that's very true, because that's exactly what I tried to do a little of, to show you just glimpses. Clearly, there's a huge amount of work and study that needs to be done. It's a wide open area, but I think it's quite fascinating, because we're looking not just at a game changer for all people, but for perhaps an underrepresented majority that we really didn't realize. You know, people benefit from assistive technology. And another point to that is that often what is developed for assistive technology is beneficial to other people. So I think that breaking down those the sides of dis and abled opens up the platform for also equal discourse. And that at least is my idealistic hope.
Yeah, I agree.
Any other questions or concerns, feedback from the audience? Otherwise, I'm going to hand it back to you guys and reorient myself somewhere cozy where I can be ready to watch the next speaker.
Well, I don't see any questions, but I would like to add my own 2 cents in that I thought the talk was fantastic. I do believe that you represented sort of an underrepresented group. And, you know, we often hear about hidden disabilities, but I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about them so eloquently. So I would like to thank you for that. And I would also like to welcome you back, because we did miss you while you were away. And we're really glad that you're back, and seeing you online again and seeing your smile was, you know, the highlight of my night. My cat has even tried to jump up and make an appearance in behind and clean himself.
Hi,
in your
kitty.
honor.
Hi, kitty.
So yeah, I just wanted to. It was a fantastic talk, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, that just makes my heart so warm and wonderful. Thank you. I'm so glad to be back amongst wonderful people. I've missed you so much. Thank you.
Well, here's to many more talks.
Okay. Bye, everybody. You have a terrific, terrific Global Accessibility Awareness Day.
There we go. All right, so coming up at the top of the hour, who do we have next? We have Amelia, I think, is up next. Is she not? Yes, we have Style as Substance with Amelia, and we will be switching over to the next Hangout in just a couple of minutes. Just a reminder to everybody, if you do want to tweet and ask any questions, just use the ID24 hashtag on Twitter. We are monitoring that and keeping a close eye on that. So we look forward to hearing a lot from all of you over the next few hours. On that note, we're going to end this one. We're going to shut this one down, and we're going to move on to the next one. So we'll see you at the top of the hour at the next URL. You can check out inclusivedesign24.org for all of the URLs. Make your list and pick your sleeping times wisely. I heartily suggest you don't sleep until tomorrow night, but that's up to you. All right, we'll see you in a few minutes.